We are coming to you from the city beautiful Chicago, Illinois, where tonight WGN Sports on You presents White Sox baseball. There's Paul Konerko. He's back. Adam Dunn, Chris Sale in the Sox as they get set to butt heads with Miguel Cabrera, Vince Fielder, and the Detroit Tigers. Hi, everybody, and welcome. With Steve Stone, I'm Ken Harrelson. We get set to bring you the first of this four-game set. As you know, we won the ball game against Atlanta yesterday. That was the rubber match, so taking 2 out of 3 from the first-place Braves was very good. We got a lot of work cut out tonight, but Steve, maybe the best pitching matchup we've seen all year.
I'm very excited about this matchup tonight because very rarely do you see 2 of the best in baseball going head-to-head, and Max Scherzer goes to the mound for Detroit. This is his All-Star Game appearance. He started that one. He's 13-1 this year and doing just about everything right. That fastball at 99. He has unbelievable stuff. You take a look at what he's done. First in wins, second in opponent batting average, second in strikeouts and ERA. He's 12th. But he plays for a terrific team. And this is a capricious game, and I'll tell you why. Chris Sale has just about as good a stuff as Max Scherzer. The difference is he's 6-8. Now, this is his All-Star Game appearance, and he made some very good hitters look awfully bad. Sale has that kind of stuff. He can be overwhelming. But with a 6-8 record, despite the fact that his ERA is lower than Max Scherzer, you can understand that pitching against a ball club is not as important as a ball club you're pitching with. So for Chris Sale, I like his chances tonight.
Well, you know what you got, so sit back, relax, and strap it down. White Sox baseball coming your way.
Cellular Field. Before the game, there was music. Certainly the fans really enjoyed all the festivities here, and a lot of the festivities are going to take place on the field because you got 2 of the best pitchers in all of baseball hooking up in this game, and it should be just a terrific series. The Tigers are in for 4, and let's take a look at how the matchups will go for the rest of the series. Tomorrow it's going to be Rick Porcello at 6-6 against Hector Santiago at 3-5, but with an ERA of 3.30. Anibal Sanchez, who we hit very well in Detroit, goes to the mound at 7-7. That on Wednesday against Johnny Danks, who's 2-7. And Thursday, another great pitching matchup. Justin Verlander, who got hit hard in his last start, against Jake Peavy, who will be making his second start, and a lot of scouts are going to be in attendance to watch Jake and see how he bounces back from his first start coming off the disabled list. So heading into this series, 13 games back, it should be exciting. That's brought to you by Xfinity Home. Get peace of mind with Xfinity Home, the total home security and home control solution that keeps you more connected to what matters most. We'll be back with the lineups and tonight's first pitch after these messages. The most live sports. Tonight's game's available in Spanish on your SAP audio setting, provided by 97.5 FM ESPN Deportes, Chicago's first and only FM Spanish language sports radio station. So beautiful night for baseball, 85 degrees, and Jim Leland has his Tigers in first place, but they're barely holding off the Cleveland Indians. The Indians come in a game and a half in back of the Tigers. The Tigers under 500 on the road. Robin Ventura saw his team play a very good series against the #1 team in the National League East, taking 2 of 3 from the Atlanta Braves, and looking for more of the same against these Tigers. So let's take a look at how Jim Leland's going to line up his Tigers tonight. Austin Jackson's going to lead it off. Torrey Hunter is going to be batting second. Miguel Cabrera, who's all everything, leading the American League in hits, third. Then it's Prince Fielder, Victor Martinez, Johnny Peralta, Matt Tuiasosopo, Brian Pena, and Hernan Perez rounding it out and playing second base. The White Sox defense brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places. It's Viciedo, Diaza, and Rios left to right, with Gillespie, Ramirez, Keppinger, and Dunn in the infield. Josh Fegley gets a nod behind the plate, and Chris Sale on the hill. Chris, fresh off his All-Star game appearance where he was absolutely brilliant, his 6-8, his ERA, 2.85 on for the 18th start. Opponents hitting a paltry .213 against him. And with 27 walks and 131 strikeouts, that's one of the best walk-to-strikeout ratios in all of baseball. The umpires for the game tonight: Bruce Dreckman behind the plate, Chris Conroy is at first, Gary Darling is at second, and Jerry Meals is at third. So they've thrown the ball around the infield. That means we're ready to play baseball and kick off a big 4-game series. I'm ready to turn it over to my play-by-play partner, Ken Harrelson.
Hi, Stevie. Thank you very much. And once again, good evening, everyone, and welcome to White Sox baseball right here for WGN Sports on the U. So glad you could join us for the first of this 4-game set. And a week long of baseball. 4 of these guys finished off with 3 against Kansas City. So here's the 26-year-old center fielder Austin Jackson hitting at .272 and the first pitch of the ball game. Taken for a strike. Pitch at 95. Tigers come in hitting at 280 as a club with a 3.82 ERA. That ball into left field, off the end of the bat. And yes, Tanks stayed with it and makes the catch. A beautiful play by Viciedo.
Jackson stayed back and waited for the changeup. It was a good pitch. And Viciedo comes on and takes it right off the grass. And hopefully, one of these days he will not injure that lead elbow or shoulder, because that's a catch that he makes a lot. And he usually comes away unscathed.
So here's Torrey Hunter, 38-year-old veteran, hitting at 307, 7 homers and 45 knocked in. And here at the ballpark, 330 down the left field line, 335 down the right field line, 375 in the gaps, and 400 straightaway center. A beautiful evening here in the city. Beautiful. 1-2 the count.
Another good changeup by Sale. And that's really been the maturation process of Chris Sale. He always threw hard. He always had a great, big, late breaking slider, but now he's got a terrific changeup to go with it.
And that ball is going foul. This is the 4th meeting of the year between these two clubs. Counting tonight, we have 16 left. In the first 3 at their place, we won 2 of them. Count evens at 2. Hunter has faced Chris 4 times. He has a couple of hits. And the count goes full.
Hunter was brought over after a big year with the Angels last year, signed a 2-year free agent contract. And he's given them some leadership in the clubhouse and a pretty solid right field.
Payoff pitch. Hit hard but foul. Yeah, last year he had 313, 16 homers, and knocked in 92.
I think last year Detroit felt that Avisaíl Garcia would be ready to play every day in right field. He's just 22 years old, and it really hasn't worked out that way for them to this point. So they felt as a stopgap measure they would bring Torrey Hunter in. And hitting in front of Cabrera and behind Jackson is a pretty good spot in the batting order.
That fastball at 97 fouls it back.
Chris is trying to work him everywhere. Down and in, down and away.
And that has popped up. Can of corn. 2 down.
In this batting order, what do you think is the best spot? I mean, you have so many good hitters. If you had your choice, where would you hit in this lineup?
I would love to hit 5th.
After Fielder, before Martinez?
I would love to hit 5th, where Victor Martinez is hitting. In fact, I think as Cabrera grounds it out, I think 5th has always been the best RBI spot. But a nice 1-2-3 inning, aided by a beautiful play by Viciedo. And the half inning of play is Tigers nothing, and the good guys coming to bat.
tonight. White Sox lineup brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places. Leonard Diaz leading it off. Then it's Ramirez and Rios, along with Adam Dunn, who leads the team and runs batted in. Then it's Canerco back in the lineup with Keppinger, Gillespie, Viciedo, and Fegley rounding it out. The defense, and now they'll line up behind Scherzer. Tuiasosopo, Jackson, and Hunter in the outfield with Cabrera, Peralta, Perez, and Fielder in the infield. Ryan Pena behind the plate. And Max Scherzer on the hill. This is his 20th start. The ERA a little over 3. Opponent's hitting a paltry .206. 152 strikeouts, just walks in the low 30s.
And before we show you our picks to click, you at home select yours, as there's first pitch strike, that one at 92. Sox also come in hitting at 250 with a 4.00 team ERA. As that has popped up. Hernan Perez.
While Max Scherzer was warming up, Hawk, Paul Canerco, was hitting fifth, was out on the grass taking some warm-up swings. What do you think he was doing out there that early?
Trying to time Scherzer. Now, again, there's a change in the culture of today's game.
The old pitcher wouldn't like that very much. He would be sitting down.
You might drill him in front of the dugout. I've seen that happen. So here's Alexei. Yeah, that was a definite no-no. You did not in any way, shape, fashion, or form try to time that pitcher when the on-deck circle was okay a little bit. They didn't like that, though.
Especially when you're hitting fifth.
Alexei has had a tough time against Scherzer, as a lot of guys have. He's 3 for 30. Tigers pitching staff, though, leading the league in road ERA at 3.57. Out and hooks that one down. Oh, Joe. Super Joe.
Well, second part of the year, sometimes you don't have your rhythm quite yet, just back from the All-Star break, so he knows he should have had that. He'll do better next time.
Cabrera give him a little beef.
This is right at him. That's got to be key coach.
Yeah. Well, watch out. That's in the press box.
Scherzer came over from the Diamondbacks along with Daniel Schlereth in exchange for Edwin Jackson and Ian Kennedy. That was in 2009, December 9th.
Fielder does what he has to do right there. Takes it off the gut. Good play by Prince.
And we'll take a look at Miguel Cabrera, who's getting a lot of joy out of that, and asking Joe if he'd like his glove. Joe,
I love to watch this guy play.
Joe, of course, ignoring him.
He's like a big kid out there. He just loves to play the game of baseball. He has fun. He can laugh at himself. And he's the best hitter in the game.
Well, you saw that out the first time where he swung at the first pitch. I guarantee you, if he comes up in a situation and Chris tries to throw him that same pitch, he's going to hit it awfully hard.
Here's Rios. One thing about, there's only two ways to handle Cabrera. You either walk him with 4 fingers up. You're not trying to pitch around him.
Right.
Walk him. Or if you got to pitch to him, you got to bust him underneath his hands. Those are the only 2 ways to go about it. You throw the ball anywhere out over that plate and he will just beat you to death.
Pretty lively fastball on the outer third. Scherzer now is doing a lot of what Verlander did. He's throwing his fastball 92, occasionally 93. That last one 97, but he holds it back. He doesn't show you just how hard he can throw it until he has to.
And yet the funny thing about it, last time our guys faced him, they were raving about his changeup. 1-2-3 inning for him, and after 1, no score. Prince Fielder, first ball hunting. That was a 96-mile-an-hour fastball right underneath the hands. So 1 pitch, 1 out. That'll bring up Victor Martinez.
Last time we saw Victor in Detroit, he was hitting everything in sight.
Well, he's in a great spot. And you got, first of all, this is the greatest protection that Miguel Cabrera has ever had in his career, with Fielder and switch hitting Victor Martinez.
No doubt.
But Victor, with those two guys sitting in front of him, he's going to have a chance to drive in a whole bunch of runs. You might say, well, between Cabrera and Fielder, they'll take them all off the base paths. Well, they're going to be on the base paths.
You can see his career against our Sox, and it's been awfully good.
Well, he's got 19 home runs against us. That's the most. There's another line shot. And this one cannot be caught. So he continues just to line drive everything against us.
Good try by Diaza, and he was fortunate as that ball sunk that he was able to keep it in front of him.
Here's Peralta hitting at .305, 8 homers, 46 knocked in. We got to mention this because it's very pertinent and germane to the pennant race. Ryan Braun, of course, today suspended for the rest of the season. Steve, you were telling me before, tell the viewers out there how this could possibly impact everything.
Yeah, I think that you have a tendency to believe it's only going to impact the Milwaukee Brewers because they won't have Braun. He's not going to appeal it. I think it was a negotiated settlement, and he'll be lost the rest of the year with no pay. But it's going to affect baseball independent races for all of the teams that are going to play the Brewers. Now, although Braun was disabled at this point, he was going to come back. And he's a huge force in the middle of that lineup, so he won't be around. And supposedly there are 17 more coming, and they're going to come in the not-too-distant future. When that happens, along the same lines of negotiated settlement, well, they'll be suspended perhaps for the rest of the season. That's going to affect the trade deadline. It's going to affect the pennant races both for buyers and sellers, and certain guys who are not valuable right now might become very valuable as that ball hit into right field, keeping the inning alive but holding runners at first and second. So when the other names are announced and we see just exactly who's affected, it's going to take a team that might not feel that they have a hole or might not want somebody at this point because they don't want to give up any of their young prospects and force them to make a deal. It's also going to take a team that's a seller, and our ball club might fall into that role and make what we have to sell much more valuable because teams that weren't interested suddenly will become very interested. And so the next couple of days are going to be something that every general manager, certainly every owner, and all the players are going to look at and see when the next shoe is going to fall and who it's going to fall on.
Well, Peralta's name has been mentioned, and that certainly would impact the Tigers.
There is no doubt, and one of the reasons why it would, if it does come to pass and does happen to the Tigers, they don't have any backups at shortstop, not in their minor leagues, not in their major leagues, so they're going to have to look to make a deal if in fact he's one of the guys. If not, then it won't be a fact.
There's a strike to Pena. 2 out, 2 on, 1-1 to count. That single by Trias DeSopo. He was 1 for 3 off Chris with a 2-run homer.
Pena, a switch hitter who's actually a better hitter from the left side than he is from the right.
There's a big sweeper. Well, he's having a good year for him. There's no question about that. Alex Avila, who has really hurt us in the past, has had a couple of injuries and he's been struggling. So Pena turned out to be a good pickup.
Anytime you can get a switch hitting catcher, especially a guy who can make some contact, you probably have to go and get that guy.
He gone. And that'll retire the side. They have a mild threat. Can't score after an inning and a half. No score. There you see. Tamangio, back to the crew on with Tank. He's going with Josh Fagley, and we'll stay with the winner for next day. Peter Winfrey, Tracy Williams, Cindy, Jane. We're going to go with Keppinger tonight. So here's Adam. You know, just to show you, Adam comes in hitting at 211, 24 homers, 61 knocked in. Just to show you his importance. Even with that 211. In White Sox wins this year, he's hitting 305 with a 433 on base percentage, 695 slugging, with 15 homers and 34 RBIs.
Hence the White Sox wins.
Yeah.
Now, when the big man is hitting the ball out of the ballpark, and when he's keeping an inning alive by going the other way, in usually hitting it away from the defense, things click pretty well for the offense. When he's not getting it done and his team doesn't hit the ball out of the park, it gets awfully tough for him.
Well, it puts an awful lot of pressure on everybody else when he's not hitting. But it's a beautiful thing when he is. Ball hammered off the glove of fielder. Scherzer is there. That'll be a 3-4-1. Another rocket shift takes away another base hit.
Pretty good play by Perez, not knowing where that ball is going to carry him. And there is no doubt that Adam took an inside fastball at around 96 miles an hour, turned on it, and hit a rocket. Fielder did a good job just to be able to get a piece of the glove on it, and Scherzer is right where he has to be. So everybody did the right thing, including Adam, who hit the daylights out of it.
If Fielder doesn't slow it up, Perez is not going to make the play. So here's Paulie. It's great to see him back. He said he feels terrific, and he's ready to go. That ball hit deep into right field, but they got a man there. So 2 hard hit balls here in the bottom of the second. Yeah, but you're going to take a little time. As well he should. He comes in hitting at 246, couple of homers, 28 knocked in, and yesterday there were 2 game-saving plays. One by Keppinger and of course the one by Casper Wells.
It was an outstanding defensive effort. I mean, that was just a team win where everybody did exactly what they had to do. You got just enough offense. You got terrific work out of the bullpen. And just enough starting pitching to make sure that you were able to subdue a very good Atlanta team. We'll take a look at Jeff Keppinger. This is just a wonderful play, diving to his left. That saved 2 runs. So that gets through, and it's a completely different game.
Brian McCann just absolutely scalded that, as he's saying he fouled it. Bruce Dreckman is saying you're out. We have some bench. And that'll retire the side. We're into the 3rd. First pitch outside to Hernan Perez. 22-year-old second baseman hitting 143. Threw that one right by him.
Right now the visibility very much favors the pitcher. And both of these guys have such overwhelming stuff. You would think it would be low scoring, especially early. Nice to see Paul back in the lineup.
Two and two the count. Austin Jackson on deck. He gone.
It's tough enough to hit this slider with good visibility, but in this visibility you can't pick up the spin. And Perez misses this ball by a good 1.5 feet.
Here's Austin Jackson. He was robbed of a base hit, leading off the ball game. We're pulling that up for you. There's a fastball strike.
This Tiger team doesn't run very much. Only 28 stolen bases the entire year. Jackson leads with 6. He doesn't run very much himself.
Looking to play by the big man. Yes. Beautiful catch by Dunn.
That's at least a 2-base hit and possibly 3 if that ball gets by Adam Dunn. So this fastball shot the other way, and Adam Dunn, who was close enough to the line to be able to flag it down, there's a good chance that would have been a triple.
So here's Torrey Hunter. Back to the middle, chopper, and in the center field. So that'll bring up Cabrera, who hit the first pitch he saw to the second baseman. But Austin Jackson been robbed twice now.
He could be 2 for 2. He's 0 for 2. And they've been on 2 different pitches, the straight change, and the last one was a fastball.
A little bit low. Cabrera's just been killing left-handers this year, hitting .415, 9 homers, .817 slugging percentage.
There's the rankings as he tries to pursue a second Triple Crown. First in batting average, second in home runs, first in runs batted in. Runs, walks, and hits also first. What a year again for Miguel Cabrera.
Nice pick by Fegley.
Looks to me in this situation like Chris Sale's not going to give in at all to Cabrera. He knows he's got a good hitter up next in Fielder, but Fielder's not going to do the same kind of damage as Cabrera. Josh Fegley able to make sure that Hunter stays at first.
And there's ball 4.
Well, that absolutely was a pitch around, so now he's got to make it hold up facing Fielder.
And if you want a terrific White Sox experience, check out the Comcast Fundamentals deck at US Cellular Field. You can interact with White Sox trainers, run the bases at the wiffle ball diamond, and test your swing at the batting cages. So catch all the action with Xfinity, your home for most live sports.
You might even run into Southpaw.
Fielder hit the first pitch he saw to Alexa. And there's a chopper base hit. So Torrey's going to score, and it's a 1-0 Detroit lead. All is coming with 2 out, nobody on.
RBI number 71. That gives their 3 and 4 hitter 167 runs batted in, and the difference here is this is a mistake by Chris Sale. He throws a slider the first pitch, but he got it up, and he got it on the inner portion. And the big man was able to take it through the right side.
Well, this is why hitting 5th on this ball club is such a sweet spot. That's a blue plate special because Cabrera's going to walk a lot. He's going to be pitched around a lot. Fielder's going to get base hits. So now he comes to the plate here with 2 guys on. Takes that pitch outside. Chris Sale, boy, our buddy Chris Kamka, who does a lot of research for us, did a comparison with Chris Sale and Randy Johnson. There's a strike. Through both of them, their first 1,631 batters faced in the big leagues. Okay. Chris Sale's given up 328 hits. Randy Johnson gave up 310. Randy Johnson walked 206 guys. Chris Sale's walked 115. There's the strike. But listen to this one. Randy Johnson struck out 321 of those 1,631. Chris Sale struck out 434.
Not surprising, because Randy didn't have that straight change that Sale has as early as Chris has gotten. When Randy came in, he didn't have all that much control.
Well, that's the next category. Chris Sale's 24, Randy Johnson 27 when he faced the 1600. And the irony is they both, in that length of time, they both threw 38 home runs.
That's not a whole lot of home runs.
Not for 1,631 hitters.
But the big unit threw a little bit harder. He was a little taller, but he wasn't as polished a pitcher as Chris has been this early.
Another nice snap by Fegley. So 2 on, 2 out, and a 3-2 count.
Josh is going to have to be on his toes, because that biting slider inside going to make him move very quickly to his left.
It just doesn't flatten out. It keeps digging. There they go. He gone. But they get on the board. They pick up 1, and after 2.5, they lead at 1-0.
WGNTV.com and click on the Game Zone banner for updated stats and information. The Game Zone is powered by St. Xavier University. Success with purpose. Log on to www.sxu.edu to check out undergrad and graduate degree options.
Here's Gillespie hitting at .248, 7 homers, 23 knocked in, and we want to send out a big White Sox hello and welcome the Cardinal Francis George, who's here with our great buddy Chuck Walsh. And Cardinal, we could use a little help, if you know what I mean. Welcome. One and one to count.
That's a changeup that missed outside. That's really what changed Scherzer's career around. He always had the fastball, he always had the slider, and now he's got the good change, although this one misses wide. But look at the movement.
That strike evens count at 2. That ball was outside.
That was Mike Rizzo's last first-round pick as a Diamondbacks scouting director, and Rizzo went on to Washington, where now he's a general manager. Threw another changeup. Kept it low and in off the plate, and Connor could not check his swing.
Second strikeout. Oh, you mentioned what? A couple pitches ago. The movement on his changeup is the biggest factor. That thing, you think he can time it up, but it doesn't make any because it's going to get off the sweep meat.
Well, you factor that in with that hard slider. First of all, his changeup is 85-86, which is a lot of guys' fastballs. But when you throw 97, 98, on occasion 99, changeup looks that much better.
Tops that. Well, Scherzer has the second most starts in Major League history without a complete game. Tonight will be his 153rd Major League start. The guy who has the most has 167, and that was Tony Armas Jr.
It's pretty amazing when you think about how good his stuff is. And when you think about how many times he's had big leads in games. But you can take a look at his strikeouts and realize that he probably throws a whole lot of pitches just about each and every time out. And they're thinking about not necessarily these starts, but the starts he's going to make in October in the postseason.
Well, he's already gone down once this year with a little shoulder strain. He's something. Well, this staff, we talked about it in spring training. Best 5-man rotation in the big leagues.
We knew that part of it would be real good.
I cued off the end of the bat.
But what has kept it as close as it is simply that their bullpen hasn't been very good, and they're still searching for an everyday closer. So you realize that as good as this offense is, as good as this starting rotation is, and it's awfully good, you find the Cleveland Indians just sitting there, a game and a half in back, 2 games back in the loss column. And you see the standings. So the Indians having a good year, and the Tigers to this point have not been able to pull away.
Well, the Indians have more range in the infield than the Tigers.
Much more.
Tigers have, with Austin Jackson being the centerpiece out there, and now Torrey Hunter and Wright, they have an adequate defense in the outfield. As he gets in, so the 3rd strikeout in a row.
And you had to look before at Joaquin Benoit, who has become the closer of this team. Ideally, they would love to acquire a closer if they could, if the price wasn't too high, and shift Benoit back to a setup man. You saw the movement on that one as it bites down and in. But Benoit's done a pretty good job. His ERA is just 160. But they are a better team when he's setting up than they are when he closes, because then the setup role becomes difficult for them.
Breaking ball strike to Fegley.
There was their de facto ace until this year, Justin Verlander.
Good check by Josh.
Josh has done a nice job, and this is his first go around facing all these guys.
He just missed that one. About 1/8 of an inch more. That ball was going to possibly go right over that center field fence. But that is 9 up, 9 down for Max Scherzer. WGNTV.com, sponsored by Jeff Vukovich, your local nationwide insurance agent serving the area for over 34 years. So to join the nation, visit jeffvuk.com, because Nationwide is on your side.
If Adam Dunn hits one more home run in a White Sox uniform, he will tie Jim Rivera, who had 77 of them. And we mention that because it's Jim's birthday tomorrow actually, his 92nd birthday. So happy birthday, Jim.
Jungle Jim, fun to watch play. He would compete with you. Peralta, 0 for 1, went out to center field. They have a run on 4 hits. We have no runs on no hits. And we're in the top of the 4th inning.
Chris Sale knows at this point that giving up 1 run is about as far as you want to go with Max Scherzer on the mound. And although you don't think about going specifically against a pitcher, you have to realize when you're going against one of the best, and both of these guys are going against the best from their respective teams, you just can't give too many away, or any away sometimes.
No, you can't make mistakes. You can't walk these guys. You can't give them 4 outs. You can't make any errors. And with that starting staff they got, even though the bullpen is not top notch. He gone. Baseball is the poster child for the rich get rich and the poor get poorer. Always has been, always will be.
Good backdoor breaking ball has Peralta reaching, and then the ball just dives over the middle of the plate.
Tuiasosopo. Matt Tuiasosopo. Now 2 for 4 off Chris with that 2-run homer at Cabrera Park. Takes first pitch strike. Boy, he's having a nice season for these guys.
He's a specialist. He's going to face just the left-handers. And he's been pretty tough.
Well, he's hitting .330 right now to go along with 6 homers, 22 RBIs in limited service. And you give me a right-handed hitter that is well above 280, 290 against left-handed pitching, you got yourself a keeper.
He came over from Seattle. And he's a guy that's not going to be an everyday player probably at this stage of his career. That being said, he certainly helps his ball club when they face some of the tougher left-handers. Chris wanted that one.
He should have got it.
Bruce Dreckman said it dipped a little low. Looked like it had part of the plate. We'll see where it appears on Xfinity Pitch Tracks.
He just got a piece of it.
Pitch number 54 on the way.
He gone. He knew it. 2 down.
Fifth strikeout. Another one of those breaking balls that you give up on because it starts over the left-handed batter's box and then just snaps right over the middle of the plate. See that look of resignation on the face of Tuiasosopo.
Little chopper, 2-hopper. And a nice quick 1-2-3 inning. We'll go to the bottom of the 4th, trailing 1-0. Sox fans, we want to recognize your Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana Chevy dealers for their support of local youth baseball leagues. Local Chevy dealers are supporting over 30,000 young ball players in their communities through the Chevy Youth Baseball Program. Since 2010, Chevy dealers have been providing numerous leagues with equipment kits, instructional clinics, and much needed financial support. So from the big leagues to the youth league, Chevy is truly the official vehicle of baseball. 1-0 bad guys here in the bottom of the fourth, top of the order, as Scherzer has retired the first 9 he has seen.
Cabrera in on the grass at third, trying to take the bunt away, as Scherzer falls off the mound a bit to the first base side.
One and one to count. Off the glove, deflects right over to Perez. So it'll be a 1-4-3 put out.
That was a bad break, because once it got by Scherzer, who probably should have made this catch, it could have deflected anywhere. Unfortunately, it deflected right at Hernan. He was able to make the play. He is a shortstop by trade, so he's got a very strong arm at second.
Here's Alexei. He grounded down 3-1. Torrey Hunter's right there. That's the hang with him for Ramirez. And you can stop by Bacardi at the Park at US Cellular Field at the Gate 5 Plaza. Bacardi at the Park offers a full menu from Gibson's Restaurant Group and opens 4 hours prior to all home games. Bacardi at the Park, grab your friends and give them a visit. Just ask for Sil. Vasilios. Sil Process. He'll take care of you. Breaking ball. Rios went out to Austin Jackson in center field. Fastball. That one at 95.
I think Alex thought that he should have had a little better piece of that. That one was on the outer third, and it was right around thigh high.
He would not bite at that curveball.
Kept it in a good spot, especially 0-2.
Ball hit sharply down to Cabrera, who's got good hands and a good arm. And that is 12 up, 12 down for Max Scherzer. Hernan Perez struck out. Starts him off with a changeup.
A pretty good idea on the bunt, assuming that you can push it by Chris Sale and force Jeff Keppinger to field it. But he fouled it off.
Just didn't quite get there.
In Double-A this year, he was awfully good. Didn't show a lot of power, but a line drive hitter. But his specialty was defense.
That breaking ball. And that'll be the 15th error for Alexi. Leadoff man aboard.
Here's our AT&T Uverse replay, and it came in the 8th inning of a 2-run ball game with a man on, and Reed Johnson representing the tying run. Casper Wells goes back, times his leap perfectly, keeps it in the ballpark, and make sure that the Sox come away from that inning and the game with the lead and the win. Find out what's possible with products and services from AT&T. Rethink possible.
What a play. 2 game savers in that game. That's high and deep in the right field. But on the track, so Austin Jackson, who was robbed of base hits by Viciedo and Dunn, now 0 for 3.
Question for you. You're running at first base. You got pretty decent but not great speed, and you see Rios drifting back. Now you know he's going to either catch it at the wall or in the middle of the track. Do you tag up on that play?
I am, for sure.
I believe you have to go back. I think it was a base running mistake.
Yeah, I'm for sure tagging up when you see that guy going back to his right on the track.
Yeah. So we catch a break.
Torrey Hunter. Went out to right. Went out to right and singled. Also scored the only run of the ball game. That coming with 2 out, nobody on. Single by Hunter. Cabrera walk. And Prince Fielder with an RBI chopping single. Takes the bunt.
Chicago Cubs made a deal with the Texas Rangers. Matt Garza going to Texas. Mike Olt, who was the 2nd rated prospect in their system. Justin Grimm, who we saw in Texas, 7-7 as a starter this year, but with a high ERA. Young right-hander named C.J. Edwards, and 2 more to be named later going the Cubs' way for a starting pitcher that's certainly going to help the Rangers.
Change up. Count evens at 1. Well, if he features the same stuff that he's been featuring, especially like against us, that changeup's just changed the hitter's approach to him.
Well, since coming off the disabled list, Garza has been absolutely terrific. And all the scouts wanted to see was, would he be durable enough to take his start in rotation? He was able to do that, and he kept on winning.
There he goes. So he picks up his first major league stolen base.
And Fegley had a hard time throwing that ball because he had to throw it right over the top of Torrey Hunter. Hunter swings at a change, and you see Hunter ducking in front. Now, you could make a case perhaps for interference. Fegley is not going to do it.
Well, some umpires are going to call that on their own.
Yep. He ducked right across the middle of the plate.
And he knew what he was doing. Adam will take it himself. Torrey Hunter has tremendous baseball acumen. Always has that. And he has been instrumental in changing the game to a degree. Because he played so deep in center field, he thought center fielders into a new perspective of playing deeper because of the highlight reels.
You see how many guys on his bench gave him a high five. It wasn't for the ground out to first base. It was for the block of the throw from Josh Fegley.
Yeah.
And because of Torrey Hunter, Perez was safe at second, now resides 90 feet away from scoring a very important run. And the question is, do you even take a chance? And the answer has been answered. No, you don't. You don't take a chance at all with Cabrera. This is just the 13th time that he has been intentionally passed this year. Nobody else on the team has more than 5. And that's Prince Fielder, the man in the on-deck circle.
Well, that's unbelievable. I mean, for other managers, and that's one reason that Miguel Cabrera is going for another Triple Crown, because they're pitching to him, putting him on.
The fact that he's only been walked 13 times is amazing.
It is amazing. I mean, that's crazy. The guy he certainly is the best hitter in the game today, and he might go down as the best hitter we've ever seen.
He's playing in his 97th game.
And he's fun to watch, as I said earlier. I mean, he's like a big kid out there. He loves it. He and Beltre are two of the most fun players to watch in this league.
Well, they both show you how much fun they have. And if you're that good, you can have a lot of fun.
That's right.
Now Josh Fegley has got to be really careful, especially on the slider, that he blocks anything down.
And that was the pitch that Prince hit in the hole, chopped it in the hole for that RBI single. Two and 0 the count.
Victor Martinez in the on-deck circle. Strikeout victim to end the 3rd inning, but hit the ball very hard in the 2nd.
Three and 0.
Give him the 3-0 green light here, knowing he's going to get a fastball or suspecting it.
I would let Cabrera, Fielder, or Martinez hit 3-0 anytime they wanted to, because they're all smart hitters.
He's going to get a fastball.
And that'll load him up.
And here comes Don Cooper, because you make the intentional walk, then the unintentional walk. The end result is bases loaded.
Well, this is not working out to be a bode well situation for us, in the respect that in the 2nd inning he threw a lot of pitches that were stressful. In the 3rd inning, he threw a lot of pitches that were stressful.
And now he has to go to the well for the 3rd time.
Right.
So Don Cooper was talking to him about a 1-run game, how they went over the pitching to Martinez before the game, what he wants to do with him, knowing that a base hit here, giving Scherzer and the Tigers a 3-run lead, is not a very good position to be in. So this becomes a critical out of the ball game.
There are usually at least 4, sometimes 5 or 6 outs that you have to get against a good ball club, and this is certainly one of them.
Last year, Martinez lost for the year to injury. And the year before that, he led the Tigers, hitting .400 with runners in scoring position.
And he just kills us. His first year with the Tigers, he really hurt us a lot more than Cabrera.
Yeah, that was the year he hurt just about everybody. And Cabrera, nobody is paying any attention to him at second.
Pulls the string on him. Martinez now 9 for 14 against us this year. As there's the changeup. In lifetime against us, a .323 hitter. With 19 homers, that's the most of any opponent for him. And 80 RBIs.
And with the bases loaded, no surprise. Lifetime .315.
Yes. Backdoor breaking ball.
But a bit of a break here. Sometimes you need a pitch call.
Yeah, and maybe try to double him up. Slow low, a hard high. And there's a breaking ball. And it's going to score a pair. And it's there's the intimidation of Cabrera that works for the Tigers, and it's a 3-0 game. And it's justified, warranted.
Well, I think Chris tried to throw this ball in the outside corner, and unfortunately, Victor Martinez, who's a very smart hitter, thinking along the lines with Chris Sale. He had just thrown one outside. He just got the benefit of the call. He threw it in the exact same spot. But Martinez, looking for it, just took it right back up the middle and drives home runs 52 and 53. And it's a 3-run game.
So here's Peralta. And if you're scoring along with us, by the way, obviously, those runs are unearned.
I think Cabrera's hurt. Because when he came around third base, he slowed down. It looked like Diaz had a shot at him. And if it's just a cramp, it's one thing. But the area he's pointing at.
Not a cramp.
Well, you hate to call it a sports hernia, but that's basically where that is. The area that he was showing the trainer.
Change up.
Cabrera slowed down around third base. And you can see him grimace right there. Diaz came up, looked like he might have had a play. Cabrera was obviously hurting as he came around.
The 1-2 pitch. Got him. But the error starts off this inning for them, and they capitalize by scoring two unearned runs again. And we trail it 3-0. Fans are invited to stay for a post-game fireworks show presented by Palmer House Hilton. Palmer House Hilton, the official Sox Fest hotel of the White Sox. So purchase tickets today by visiting whitesox.com or calling 866-SOX-GAME.
As Cabrera went to his position, he was still looking like he was in some pain.
Well, he's shown us he will play with pain.
Well, there's no doubt, and you can see it there. And just to check it out, we don't have any butters, but I would bunt on him. Make sure that he's okay and he's moving well.
There are some managers, Steve, not today's culture, but there are some managers who would have told the whole team, I want you to lay it down third base with him.
Let's see how okay he is.
There's a strike. Not their big boppers, but everybody else, lay it down.
In the meantime, perfect game so far for Scherzer.
There, the boy. Yeah, he's hurt. There's no question.
Well, there's no
that.
doubt. I'm surprised he's still in the ball game, actually.
Yep.
Because normally he would at least go after that. He took one quick movement and then pulled up and let the ball go into left field.
Well, you can cancel a post-game show as you look at it and watch him just come up gimpy. That's our first base runner. And here's Canerco. Paulie hit the ball hard deep into right center field. Paulie, 8 for 30 lifetime against Scherzer. And of the 8 hits, 6 of them stayed in the park. And there's a fly ball on the right at Torrey Hunter. So 1 out.
I think that I had a hard time believing that he's been out there because he's been hurting since he rounded third base.
Well, knowing him, if he's going to come out, he is definitely hurting because he's a gamer. But he has already been a huge factor in the 3 runs scored by the Tigers.
And for Detroit, until they find out just exactly what it is, there's going to be a whole city holding their breath. Don Kelly comes out. He's going to take over at third base. Now, this is a packed lineup. They're awfully good, but the man that makes them go is the man that just left in the middle of an inning. Well, Kelly loosens up. Scherzer is walking around out around second base. That's kind of what you'd like to see. Ordinarily, you'd like to see your pitcher making sure that he's loose enough. It is 82 degrees, so perhaps he will not lose anything. But if you're Jeff Keppinger, you're going to look for a fastball first pitch.
Strikeout victim. Short lead by Dunn. First pitch, just a spinning strike.
Just threw a get me over and it worked.
Yeah, which is going to most of the time on first pitch. Close, good eye.
That fastball just off the outside corner. Jackson shading him toward right center field.
There's a high chopper. The only play is going to be the first, so they take it for out number 2. And here's Gillespie. Could not check a swing on a changeup and struck out. Well, those 2 unearned runs that we gave up in the top half of this inning. Last year we gave up 30 unearned runs, to by far the fewest amount in the big leagues. 30 unearned runs all year long. As that's popped up. Those 2 that we just gave up in the top half of this inning are numbers 41 and 42. So that'll do it for us here in the 5th, and we trail it 3-0.
Provided by 97.5 FM ESPN Deportes, Chicago's first and only FM Spanish language sports radio station.
Matt Tuiasosopo leads it off here in the top of the 6th. 3-5-0 for them, 0-1, and a huge one for us. 2 of those 3 runs unearned, and there's a 2-hopper down to Gillespie. So he's now 1 for 3.
He was acquired as a minor league free agent. So Seattle let him go. And some pretty good scouting on the part of the Tigers. Because here's a guy with a lifetime batting average in the 1s in the major leagues. Yet they saw something that made them believe he could hit the left-handers, and it's worked out that way.
Well, they've got A terrific guy who's been with them for a long time, who was a terrific talent evaluator. And that guy's name is Scott Reed.
Scott Reed is very good. I faced him as a minor league left-hand hitter. Later, he was with the Cubs, and he's been the right-hand man to Dave Dombrowski for a while.
Yeah, he's a good one. We talk about it so often, but it's the truth. The heart and soul of the game of baseball are scouts. They're the ones that are put under the gun all the time, and especially in the culture of today's game. As that ball goes around the plate to Pena.
Well, if you can see something that very few other people can see, you're taking a chance. If you're talking about a minor league free agent, you're taking a chance and not gambling very much.
Plenty of time. 2 down. Pena now for 3. Yeah, they're there. You just got to have somebody who can go find them.
There is Pete Vukovich, who works for Seattle these days.
And look at Jimmy Fregosi.
And Jim Fregosi.
Boy, there's a pair that'll be the full house right there. Those two.
Yeah, they are two of the more interesting characters in baseball.
Fregosi might be the best baseball person who's not managing a major league ball club.
He certainly does know the game.
You know what he does? He's a guy who played shortstop and third, but primarily is a heck of a shortstop. But he knows pitching. He knows pitching. He is terrific in that area. And very seldom do you see managers who know pitching as well as he does.
Well, I think you're seeing something there, and it looks like just a picture of two guys talking baseball. But you'll notice one thing about Jim. He's doing more listening than he is talking. And good scouts do a lot of listening because they want to know what other scouts know without giving them too much of what they know. And it's an art to do that.
Well, it's a habit you have to get into. It's a habit because there are a lot of, especially young scouts today coming in. And you've talked to a lot of them, as I have, that are trying to impress people with how much they know about the game already. He gone. 1, 2, 3 inning, 7 strikeouts, but he trails at 3-0.
Fifth annual Charities Week. Several of the White Sox wives, including Jen Konerko, Leanna Floyd, Lacey Jones and Nancy Flowers visited the Ronald McDonald House near Lurie Children's, where they baked and served cookies to patients and house guests. Today's visit was the first of 4 outreach events taking place this week. To learn more about Charities Week and how to get involved, visit WhiteSoxCharities.org.
First pitch to Viciedo. Taken down low for ball 1. 3 runs, 5 hits for them. No runs, 1 hit, but 1 huge error for us. Led to that 2-run 5th.
That was a fastball that Tank probably wishes he had back.
Well,
right down the middle.
He doesn't understand why he missed it. He's been in the habit lately of coming off the pitch.
Yep. So as a hitter, how do you stop yourself from pulling that left shoulder?
Well, what you have to do is you have to be ready to take an 0 for 4 if you're in that habit. And you do that. We saw a great example of Chase Utley with the Phillies, how he looked at the balls all the way into the catcher's mitt.
Yeah.
You get in that habit. Thurman Munson was a classic example of that. When he was watching that ball into the catcher's mitt, somebody was in trouble. You watch it into the catcher's mitt. I was a guy that did not do that. I saw the ball for 54, 55 feet. Your good hitters like a Cabrera watch it. Is that ball hit deep into right field? Stretch! Hunter back, jumps. You can put it on the board. Yes! Opposite field. And it's a 3-1 ball game.
RBI number 30 on his 8th home run. And the same pitch he missed in this same at bat that time, he was able to catch up to. It's a fastball. It's right there. And I think Scherzer thought, well, he missed one. Maybe he'll miss a second one. And that's why Viciedo most unhappy with himself after missing the first one, as he took it into the Miller Lite Bullpen Sports Bar and Party Porch. Hope he didn't bounce it off one of the Bertucci boys.
That ball would be in trouble. Is there's a number? Stay foul. Stay foul. It will.
Prince tried to convince Chris Conroy that it was fair.
Watch how he stays on this pitch. Watch his head. Makes the commitment. He's got it. Now you see how he stayed there. He did not. The shoulder didn't take his head out.
Well, he learned something in the same at bat. He learned something and adjusted.
That's what good hitters do. They adjust sometimes from pitch to pitch with what they're doing wrong.
Well, for Scherzer, that's home run number 13 he's given up. That leads the team in that department.
But getting back to how long you see it, that's how I judge hitters, is how long they see the ball. You take Cabrera. Miguel Cabrera probably sees more pitches longer than anybody in this league. So if he's seeing the ball for 58, 57 feet, 59 feet, okay, and I'm seeing it for 54, 55, who's going to hit the most?
Well, you'll commit before he will.
No, I got to cheat more.
Yeah. And he won't be fooled on breaking balls away because he's watching the ball the whole way.
Right. You can sit there, and the way he goes, he stays in a mode. He's so good, he stays in a mode with his approach at the plate virtually all season long. Where guys like myself, we would only go through 2, 3, 4 periods, short periods of that. Begley with a sharp single into left field. He just missed one his last time up. Don't stop now, boys.
Well, Jeff Begley has shown, number one, he's a very strong guy, but two, he's got a very lively bat. And if you make a mistake on him, he's going to hurt you. He goes out and gets this one and pulls it, where a lot of guys would have tapped that ball and hit it to the right side for a ground out.
Here's De Aza. He's popped a second and grounded out 1-4-3. Breaking ball high. Now watch Fegley and watch him. Watch his knees. Watch his knees. He'll let his knees take him down. Now he does not bend at the waist. A lot of guys on that pitch right there will bend over at the waist, and when they do, their head moves and they come off the ball. Ted Williams used to preach that. Let your knees take you down. Let your knees on a low pitch. In his case, everything's low. And now, Jeff Jones comes out.
As Jones walks out, you see De Aza on a 9-game hitting streak where he's hit everything in sight, and now his 13-game winner has fallen behind 2-0. So a couple of guys up in this inning and a couple of guys have hit the ball very hard.
And while they're out there, you can organize a group outing of 20 or more for a Sox game during the season and receive savings off the individual game ticket price. You can enhance your outing by upgrading to our new Miller Lite bullpen party porch, pregame patio party, diamond suite, or one of our other great party areas. So 312-674-1000 or WhiteSox.com. That's the Bertucci boys. They'll take care of you, Bobby Bruno and Handsome Anthony. Two-0 pitch, Alejandro. Rips that one over by the Tiger dugout.
He threw a changeup, got it inside. Usually when you throw a changeup inside, the hitter, if he makes contact, is only going to pull it foul. So Scherzer at the 70 pitch mark, which is not a particularly high total. We'll see how many he uses to get out his inning.
Two and two. And of course, with that home run by Tank, the Alex Snellius family will donate a generous donation to White Sox charities in loving memory of Ursula.
Here's a man that made it a 2-run game with that opposite field home run. Now it's up to the rest of this lineup to try to add a few more here in the 6th.
Fouls that back. Two and two. Stay on top of him. 30. Full count.
Got no sense watching the real game when you can play a video game. Let's hope on that video game De Aza gets a base hit.
Payoff. Change up. No chance.
That ball low and out of the zone. Once you've committed, you got no chance whatsoever.
So here is Alexei. Grounded out 3-1 and lined out to Torrey Hunter and right. Long set. Now too long. Top of the ninth down in Arlington. Rangers shutting out the Yankees 3-0.
Hugh Darvish started that game, so he's back off the injured list.
Yankees no runs on just 2 hits.
Yankees are in some trouble.
Houston shutting out Oakland 3-0. That's the top of the 5th down at the juice box. You know, there's an under the radar story right there. Houston 33-64, 31 games under, and yet their manager, with that ball club he's got to run out there every day, has done a heck of a job.
I think Bo Porter has got that young team playing as hard as they can every day. They're terribly outmanned. There's no doubt about it. They're probably going to trade their best pitcher in Bud Norris. You see him 23 games and a half behind. They've got a lot of young talent in that system. So their best days are well ahead. And what Bo Porter is there for is to teach the guys that they're going to keep how to play the right way. And they're going to move out a lot of the other guys, make some trades. I think Bud Norris is going to be sought after by a number of teams, and we'll see how it plays out for them.
Fouls that one. They will play 27 outs. That's all you can ask. That's what Gardenhire did with those Twins for so many years. They will give you 27 outs. Baltimore leading Kansas City 4-2. That's what the Orioles do. They give you 27 outs. Once again, the 0-2. And right to the bag. So we get the home run by Viciedo. We go to the 7th, trailing 3-1. Plaza presented by Pepsi on Saturday, July 27th, located at Gate 5. Argulo Sox features Latin music performances before the game and other activities for fans of all ages. Now, specially priced lower level tickets start as low as $14. So visit whitesox.com/Argulo to purchase today. Pepsi, live for now. Hello, Pepsi. Detroit on top 3-1, 3-5-0 for them, 1-3, and a big one for us. First pitch strike, Austin Jackson, who has been robbed of 2 hits, one by Viciato on left, one by Dunn on a line shot. Beautiful play at first, and then he went out deep to right field. And the count 0-2.
Nobody has to tell Chris that with the top of the order, he's got to hold this lineup right there. With Cabrera out, it becomes a little easier.
He gone. Eight strikeouts.
One of the real big stories in the American League East is the resurgence of Tampa Bay. Trying to win their 6th in a row. They're leading Detroit 3-0. That game's still in the top of the 9th. If they beat Boston, they will move a half game in back of the Red Sox and tied in the loss column. Wow.
That ball deep into right field. And it's a 4-1 ball game.
Torrey Hunter has been looking away the entire night. And that time he got one to his liking, his 8th home run. His 46th driven in. And for Chris Sale, the 12th home run he's given up this year. He got one out away. It was off the plate. And gone.
So here's Don Kelly making his first plate appearance. Cabrera was 0 for 1 with a couple of walks and a run scored.
Still got BP I didn't have, but I got him again. Yeah.
Pretty good breaking ball, didn't get it. 1-1.
Pitch number 101 on the way. Miguel Cabrera, sore left hip flexor muscle, reevaluated tomorrow.
Eppinger, 2 down.
Fielder had one of the big at-bats of this game. That was in the 5th inning after the intentional walk to Cabrera. He walked on 4 straight pitches, setting it up for Victor Martinez. Victor came through with a base hit, driving in 2. They were unearned, but they're part of the difference as you look at one of the best clutch hitters in the game.
He's another guy who's fun to watch.
He's just a terrific player.
Yeah.
He was terrific with Cleveland. And he's excellent here in Detroit.
Tries the Tommy Hawk Gauntlet.
Martinez went to Boston in the deal that sent Justin Masterson to the Indians, but then signed as a free agent by these Tigers, and a good sweeping breaking ball for strike 3. So we'll head into the bottom of the 7th inning, and it's a 4-1 Tiger lead. Major League Baseball.
As you check out our WGN Sports on the U tail of the tape. 4-6-0, 1-3-1. It should be a 2-1 game if you're just tuning in. 2 unearned runs we gave them in the 5th inning. Those are unearned runs, numbers 41 and 42 for the season. And last year, in 162 games, we only gave up 30. So it'll be Rios, Dunn, Canerco against Max Scherzer, going for his 14th victory. Started off 13-0.
Pretty unbelievable start. Combination of just great pitching and a very strong baseball team.
Boy, that changeup has changed the lives of many pitchers in the last few years.
Makes your fastball look that much better.
So Rios now 0 for 3. Well, only a couple of ways you can increase your velocity. And by far the easiest is to come up with a changeup.
That's true. Makes it look a whole lot better.
There are some guys who can increase it 2 to 3 miles an hour with certain exercises and conditioning and working your behind off. But the easiest way is just come up with a good changeup. As here's Adam. He's hit the ball hard twice.
The most consecutive victories to start a season: Dave McNally in '69, Roger Clemens went 14-0 in '86, Max Scherzer and Ron Guidry.
Guidry looked more like a jockey than he did a pitcher.
He was thin, wiry, and had one of the greatest back foot sliders you'll ever see.
And could throw 96, 97.
No.
He was 28-3 in 1978.
Including postseason.
Including postseason. 25-3 during the regular season. I know you won 25 games in '80. How many did you lose? 7?
I lost 7, but I didn't have the stuff of Guidry.
No, you did not.
He had unbelievable stuff.
Louisiana Lightning. Just got a piece of that.
I still maintain it. It's one thing where you win a lot of games with a good club. I was with a terrific club in Baltimore. Guidry with a great club in '78 with the Yankees. Steve Carlton's 27-10. The 1972 Philadelphia Phillies, a team that won 59 games, remains one of the great years in the history of baseball. Team wins 59, you win 27. It was astonishing.
Yes, yanked foul.
When you pitched against that team, if you got anybody but Carlton, it was almost a walkover. When you got Carlton, you could forget about it.
When I faced Steve, he faced us in the World Series in '67. He was good, but not anywhere near like he was going to
what
get.
He became?
Yeah, he was young. He was fastball, curveball. He had a good curveball. He didn't have that slider. That's down to fielder. And that's out number 2. That'll bring up Canerco. Paulie twice has gone out to right, once deep to right center. But Steve, when he came up with the... And you know, when I got him over here in '86, it was not to win games because we weren't going to win that many games. It was to show our young pitchers what a good work ethic was.
Well, he had that. And it held him in good stead because he seemingly pitched forever.
There were a couple of guys who were front runners and forerunners, so to speak, in that department. And the first guy was Carl Yastrzemski, who started after the 1966 season, he worked with a trainer, I believe his name was Gene Verdi. And he came into spring training in 1967. And he looked like almost a different guy. He had more bat speed. Ball just jumped off his bat. And he wound up winning a Triple Crown and going to the World Series.
Guys in those days didn't work out.
No. It was a $2,000 fine for position players to lift weights. If they caught you lifting weights, says Paulie can't get it. And then I think one of the forerunners for pitchers was Steve Carlton.
Those were the days where he used the buckets of rice and worked his hands down through it to strengthen his hands, strengthen his forearms, strengthen his wrists. Now, had it been cooked rice, it would have been a lot easier, but it was uncooked rice, so it was a little more difficult.
I love rice. What Carl did to really maintain it, like in spring training and during the season, he had this setup made with an automobile tire cut in half, and he had one half up top and the other half below as he gets him. So that's a 1-2-3 inning. He's had a few of those tonight, and he leads it 4-1. Victor Martinez, 2 for 3 with 2 big RBIs, a 2-out single that accounted for 2 unearned runs back in the 5th inning. So it should be a 2-1 ball game, but it's not. They're getting back to that contraption that Yastrzemski used. They cut this automobile tire in 2, and then they nailed to a board the top half up there on top, and then they nailed the other half below to where they overlapped as that ball hit hard. Boy, he is just absolutely crushing the baseball. So that's just going to be with Viciato's arm, just a single. But they nailed it up there, and it overlapped maybe 3 or 4 inches. And he would take a heavier bat than he used in the game, and he would just absolutely go through that half right there where it overlapped for 20-30 minutes a day. And with the heavier bat, and then he would adjust the height of it for low pitches, for belt high pitches, and for neck high pitches. And it made him so much stronger. It was unbelievable. So here is Peralta. He is 0 for 3 with a couple of strikeouts. And that'd be a good thing for some of the parents out there to do.
I was going to say it's probably the forerunner of a lot of the exercises they have today. But now you're seeing the finished product with a lot of experimentation, like Yastrzemski went through at that point.
Yeah.
Ramon Troncoso loosening in the pen.
Well, our strength and conditioning coach, AT Alan Thomas, he does such a terrific job. Our guys almost every year leave a little stronger than they were before the year started. There's a strike and the count 1-2. Just tuning in, they had 1 in the 3rd, 2 unearned runs in the 5th. We scored a homer by Viciedo in the 6th. They added 1 last inning, a homer by Torrey Hunter. That changeup got a piece of it. That is a final now. 3-0 Rangers shut out the Yankees. Darvish 9-4, Nova 4-3. Tampa Bay shuts out Boston 3-0. Matt Moore 14-3. He gone. Give the Nintendo stuff, Moore.
Strikeout number 10. We had a shot at Matt Moore, let him off the hook early, and that was it in Tampa. Double figures in strikeouts once again for Chris Sale.
Dodgers making that comeback. Bottom of the 8th, leading Toronto 14-5. Dodgers now will be 4 games over 500.
They came into action tonight just a thin half game behind the Diamondbacks. They will win their 4th game in a row. Their 9th of the last 11.
Good breaking ball strike. Matt Kemp was not in that lineup.
I got hurt last night.
Did you see the ankle?
Yep.
The roll?
Yep.
Boy, that thing looked nasty.
He's had nothing but problems. Been disabled a couple of times. Might likely be disabled again. That's what it looks like in the West, with Colorado just sitting there 3.5 games back. San Francisco trying to figure out just exactly what to do at the trade deadline. Only 5.5 back. They got to climb over a few teams. San Diego at the bottom.
There's a good strike. 2-2. It's full. Dunn playing in front of Victor Martinez. Tom Brookins, coach at 3rd. Belliard at 1st. There he goes. There's a strike him out. And that's got to be interference.
Well, I would assume they would call it. He's out. It is interference. You can't cross in front of the catcher.
No.
That's exactly what happened. Meanwhile, Victor got hit with the throw, I believe.
So that'll retire the side. We'll go to the bottom of the 8th. We need 3 to tie.
shutout hit our Sox 7-3. A Quaslier committed by Ramirez led to 2 unearned runs in the 5th inning. Max Scherzer, who threw 4 perfect innings, has given up 1 run on 3 hits. Your Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana Honda dealers, as reliable as the cars themselves. Tuiasosopo leaves. Don Kelly shifts out to left field. And Ramon Santiago, normally a second baseman, moves over to third.
Capinger, Gillespie, Viciedo. 4-1 Tigers. First of 4. Tomorrow, Hector Santiago against Rick Porcello was that ball. It's hit hard but foul. And on Wednesday, Johnny Danks against Anibal Sanchez. And on Thursday, Jake Peavy against Justin Verlander. So make your plans to be with us. If you can, all 3 of those games will be over Comcast Sportsnet.
That's 40% of the starting rotation. And this is what it will be like for the remainder of the Tiger series. A lot of scouts will be very interested in how Jake Peavy bounces back from that first start, what his velocity looks like, what his movement looks like. Because starting pitchers, especially with the pedigree that Jake has, are very rare at the trading deadline this year.
Gillespie has struck out and popped to short. Just joining us, we didn't get our first hit till Adam Dunn leading off the 5th inning. That ball hit deep to right. Stretch. Hunter back, looks up. You can put it on the board. Yes. And it's a 4-2 ball game.
Eighth home run by Gillespie. He's now driven in 24. Scherzer tried to get that fastball inside, and it was exactly where he wanted to throw it, on the inside corner. However, Gillespie, with a short, quick stroke, drops the head of the bat on it and hits it out.
First pitch breaking ball strike to Viciedo. Tank is 1 for 2. Banked out his 8th homer, leading off the 6th. Oh, 2 the count. And if you missed that home run back in the 6th,
We've had all 3 guys who homered tonight hitting their 8th home runs of the year. Hunter hit his 8th in the 7th inning, and then Viciedo and Gillespie hitting their 8th. And the bullpen continues to work for the Tigers with a right and left-hander throwing.
chops that one, and that's going foul.
Bruce Rondon and Phil Cope. Cope the left-hander on the right. Rondon the right-hander on the left. Pitch number 101 in the way.
Right two. Santiago. 2 down. So a line drive off the bat of Capinger to right, and here comes Leland. Then the home run by Gillespie. Viciato with a line shot to third. Josh Fagley, who was 1 for 2.
I'm pretty sure what happens in a situation like this, manager comes out and says, give me everything you got left. Empty out the tank. Get me out of this inning. And I got a guy coming out in the ninth.
Bagley just missed hitting one out of here. High towering pop up as he takes breaking ball strike, and then he singles sharply into left field. Oh, and 2 the count. Pena and Scherzer working very nicely together tonight. And there he gets jammed, pops it up. But the home run by Connor Gillespie to go to the ninth. It is 4-2 Tigers. And receive the White Sox Wire email newsletter along with exclusive ticket offers, video sneak peeks, breaking news alerts, and more. So visit whitesox.com/blacklist. Blacklist to register today.
You saw a look in the background of Patrick Sharp and Chris Chelios taking in the ball game tonight on a beautiful night in Chicago. And Ramon Troncoso comes into the game at 1-2. The ERA a little over 6, on for the 17th time. It's a 2-run game, so Chris Sale is done for tonight. Deserved a better fate. Went 8 innings, gave up 4 runs, only 2 of them earned, 7 hits, 3 walks, 1 of them intentional, and 11 strikeouts. But he is the pitcher of record and on the hook at this point.
Boy, if it hadn't been one thing, it's been the other for Chris, hasn't it?
Well, he has had a magnificent year. Stuff's been great, but tough to win ball games.
Well, this is 18th start tonight, and probably in at least 7, maybe 8. He has given up some unearned runs. His defense has let him down. So here's Pena with a 1-0 count. Pena 0 for 3, a strikeout, a couple of grounds outs to Alexi. Plus the fact that in the other games he didn't get any offense.
David Percy loosening up.
And there's a base hit. So the leadoff man aboard. Hernan Perez.
I assume we'll probably see him laying down a bunt. Looks down at Tom Brookins to get the sign. He tried to bunt for a base hit earlier.
There he goes, fouled away on the hit and run.
Tough pitch to hit and run is that fastball moving well inside off the plate. But Perez had to protect, and he was able to foul it off. Otherwise, Pena is an easy out at second.
Short lead by Pena. There's the bunt. They'll get the job done as he bobbles it.
Sacrifice E1. Tried to hurry it, didn't have to because he had only one play, and Josh Fegley's the captain here because he's got the play in front of him. He's calling first base. All you got to do is pick it up and throw it. He picks it up and drops it.
So what could be another costly error? And here's the top of the order, Austin Jackson. They got him, figure him a good throw. Nope, bad throw. Another error. So one in, one on third, and it's 5-2.
And Pena did the right thing. Once you're picked off that much, you might as well sprint to third base and try to outrun the throw, because if you get in a rundown, you're going to be out anyway. It's a good play by Fegley. And then Pena hung out to dry. The throw is well off the mark by Ramirez, his second error of the night. And this game, an absolute microcosm of what's happened this entire season.
Indeed it is. Infield in. And the count 2-0. Indeed it is. That's going foul. Yeah, I've never been around the ball club before, who 1 year led the major leagues in defense, and the next year were the worst.
Basically the same guys.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen it. There's a base hit. So it's 6-2. Jackson will get the double. I've never seen it.
That's career double number 100 for Austin Jackson. He's driven in 24.
When errors occur like this, it's more than just the error. It's a momentum killer. Here we just take 2 out of 3 from first place Atlanta Braves. Good ball club. And then we come out, give them 200 runs in the 5th. Give them 2 more so far here in the 9th. You know, it just kills all your momentum that you can create. Looking forward to this terrific pitching matchup tonight. And once again, Chris Sale is going to catch the short end of the stick. Oh, and 2 the count. Hunter 2 for 4, a single, and that home run in the 7th, his 8th of the year. Sox fans, join us for Country Music Night and post-game fireworks presented by Pepsi on Friday, August 9th at 7:10 when our Sox take on the Twins. Purchase tickets today by visiting whitesox.com/country or call 866-SOX-GAME. He gone. It's the 11th strikeout. Chris Sale had 10, and here comes Robbie. Done. Oh boy.
So here comes Percy into the game, and we'll be back.
Celebrates 11 years with new low yearly prices. Watch out. Watch every out-of-market game live on over 350 supported mobile and connected devices in HD quality. Visit MLB TV to order and get more details. MLB.TV. Baseball everywhere.
David Percy comes into the game. He's 0-1, ERA 5.40, on for the 6th time. He inherits Austin Jackson at second base. It is a 6-2 game. And probably as big a column as there is in the line score is a big 3 under the E column for the Sox.
Yeah, we made some plays this year that I've seen before, but the last time I saw him, Junior Chamber of Commerce was playing the Optimists.
Yeah, it hasn't been pretty, and not a good night for Alexei tonight.
That ball hit hard, but we got a man there. So Kelly is retired. He's now 0 for 2 since taking over for Cabrera. He's got that, what do you have, the flexor muscle?
Yep. To be reevaluated tomorrow. And if he's lost for any length of time, it's going to be a very big blow to these Tigers.
Well, you know one thing, as we said, if he's took himself out of a game, it's the real deal.
Well, the fact that he went out there at all was surprising to me. The way he looked,
it was, yeah.
And the area that he was grabbing.
He made a believer out of me last year when we still had a lead on him, and he played in that series with 2 ankles he could barely walk on.
Just his presence in the lineup gives every pitcher a different thought process.
Changes the whole picture, the whole dynamic of the lineup. So that'll be a wild pitch. Jackson into third. Prince is 1 for 3 tonight with an RBI. Got him on the board in the 3rd inning.
That's the 3rd wild pitch for David Percy. That coming in 3 2/3 innings.
Close pitch, didn't get it, and the count 3-0. Victor Martinez, who is 3 for 4 on deck.
Our 4th drive of the game comes off the bat of Victor Martinez. Earlier in the at-bat, he had a breaking ball out away. Chris Sale tried to go back there one more time, and Martinez driving in runs 52 and 53. Our 4th drive of the game, at the time, it made it a 3-0 game, that coming in the top of the 5th.
So Martinez, as I mentioned, 3 for 4 this year. He's 11 for 16 against us.
Pretty amazing. But unfortunately, when we pulled into Detroit to see them for the first time, we were told by Lloyd McClendon, the hitting coach, and everybody associated with the team, that Victor Martinez had finally gotten back to where he was 2 years ago. And we've seen nothing in these 4 games to dispel that.
Nothing but ropes. Atlanta beat the Mets 2-1 at Citi Field. Dodgers beat Toronto 14-5 in Canada. Pittsburgh beat Washington 6-5 at Nationals Park.
Washington fired their hitting coach of 4 seasons, Rick Eckstein. Last year they scored the 5th most runs in the National League. This year, team struggling. Rick Eckstein apparently forgot how to teach hitting. That's what happens.
Well, somebody's got to take the fall. You know that.
Davey Johnson, surprisingly, did not agree with the firing. I say surprisingly because, number one, Davey knows a whole lot about hitting. Number two, he was Mike Rizzo, the general manager's hand-picked choice to manage that team, and he's done it very well. And he was in favor of keeping his hitting coach.
Yeah, when I saw that, I figured that might seal the deal for next year for Davey.
Could very well be.
Yeah. And look at this. When you're hot, you're hot. His 4th hit, another RBI, and it's 7-2. So these unearned runs just keep pouring across that plate. And here's Peralta. He's had a bad night. 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. Takes first pitch strike. Oakland trying to come back. Houston hitting in the bottom of the 7th, still leading, but it was 3-0. It's now 3-2. And that'll retire the side, but a crooked number goes up on the board. We'll go to the bottom of the 9th, trailing by 5.
For Max Scherzer, who went 8 innings, gave up a couple of runs on 4 hits. And Phil Koch comes into the game at 0-5, the ERA 5.70 on for the 32nd time. And he inherits a big 5-run lead. Seven, 10, and 0 for the Tigers. 2, 4, and 3 for our Sox. with De Acha leading it off. Coming in 0 for 3. So if this holds up, Scherzer will go to 14-1. Chris Sale would drop to 6-9.
Well, let's give him a finish. De Acha's 0 for 3. First pitch, strike one. Checks it up. Yeah, Scherzer's fun to watch from afar.
He's got very nice stuff. Didn't have his best fastball tonight, but he didn't walk anybody.
Well, that's one of the beauties of having a tremendous changeup. There's a strike. You don't have to have your best fastball.
Nope.
And he was getting a lot of first pitch strikes on a breaking ball, which don't have to be real good. Those hitters aren't going to swing at the breaking ball on first pitch. Very seldom. So he's, besides being good, he's smart. There's a chopper, two hopper, almost gets away from Perez. Meanwhile, one out. So Coke is done. He will depart and we'll be back.
He was terrific. 8 innings, 4 hits, a couple of home runs. That's it. And we got a new pitcher. It's a hard-throwing youngster, Bruce Rondon.
And here's Alexei. Oh, look at that bounce. That's the boy, you're talking about a bowling book bounce. There it was. 2 down.
0-1 ERA, 4.76. Out for the 13th time. Just learning how to do it. He's got a huge fastball. In fact, there were some who thought that he might close out of spring training. But he couldn't get the ball over the plate. So they sent him to the minor leagues, brought him back. Then they tried Jose Valverde for a bit. That didn't work. And now Rondon is not asked to close, but he's asked to learn his craft out of the pen. 101 miles an hour, so his arm is among the best in baseball.
And there's a little flipper. Fair ball. Thank you very much. So Alex will pull up with his 21st two-bagger.
Just trying to stay alive. He swings at one that was down and out of the zone. And stay alive he does.
That's a little payback for some of the line shots he's hit. He's hit right at guys this year. And he's had a bunch of those, as he did last season. That one at 99, and that's a souvenir left side. And once again, a reminder, make your plans to be with us tomorrow night. Hector Santiago against Rick Porcello. If you can't, that game will be over Comcast Sportsnet, as will the remainder of this series with the Tigers. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. On Wednesday, Johnny Danks against Anibal Sanchez. Jake Peavy, the Jake Meister, on Thursday against Justin Verlander. You're going to see a lot of scouts for that one. Change-up at 88.
When you have a fastball at 101, that changeup at 88 is pretty effective.
Well, that was a pitch when Strasburg a couple years ago pitched against us in D.C. that our guys were raving about. His changeup, and he was throwing that anywhere from, that ball gets away, wild pitch, but anywhere from 90 to 92.
That's a good change.
With a terrific fastball, terrific curveball, and all our guys after the game could talk about was his changeup. Which we've said many, many times. That's the worst 5 words that you can tell a hitter. He's got a great changeup.
Well, especially if he has the same delivery and the same release point as he does with his fastball. You can't read it, and you can't possibly time it.
2 out and a 1-2 pitch. Checks it up. He did not go. Balk. Or was time called? No, he said it's a balk. Yeah. Unless time was called, it was definitely a balk. So it's a 7-3 ball game. Wild pitch and a ball. That one at 102.
Right there, once you start to go into your stretch, you can't stop and then step off the mound.
And the 2-2. And another souvenir. Come on, Adam, get on for Paulie. Give him another at bat. That's the kind of guy that Paulie loves.
Guys that can't get the breaking ball over, that just throw fastballs.
He doesn't care if you throw 102 as long as you can't get a breaking ball over. Change up. That change up at 91. Ball 4 base hit. Tiger fans in attendance, and this game is over. Well, Tony Chris Sale, he went 8 innings, 4 runs, only 2 earned.
Good enough to win. Instead, he picked up a loss, and Scherzer, who was usually good enough to win each and every start, picked up a win tonight, his 14th. So, as you can see, it's 7-3. That's the final as the Tigers take the first of a 4-game series.